Welcome to Real-Time Reservation, your trusted partner in hospitality solutions. Running a hotel is no easy feat. Every day brings new challenges, from managing operations to ensuring every guest has an exceptional experience. Our RTR1 solution empowers hotel staff to work smarter by uniting all your systems into one cohesive platform, eliminating frustration and creating an effective and efficient guest journey. With everything in one place, it is easy for your team to focus on providing guests with the luxury service that sets your property apart. RTR1 allows properties to manage everything from restaurant reservations and spa bookings to amenity orders, pool, cabanas, and activity reservations, all in one seamless platform that is integrated into your hotel property's POS, PMS, and payment platforms. Encourage your staff to work with confidence and your guests to enjoy exceptional experiences with RTR1. Real-time reservation, one login, endless possibilities.
Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Steve Turk. I'm Managing Director of Turk Hospitality Ventures, as well as the podcast host of the Hospitality Mentor. I would like to welcome you to the International Luxury Hotel Association's webinar on empowering your hotel team by harnessing AI and tech for operational excellence and employee well-being. Today's webinar is brought to you by Real-Time Reservation. I'd like to introduce our speakers today who are very thankful for joining us today. First, we've got Sean Tarder, award-winning entrepreneur of Real-Time Reservation. We've got Katie Winter, Vice President of Commercial Strategy at Bunkhouse Hotels. And we've got David Araya, President of Conscious Hospitality Unlimited. Thanks for joining us, everybody. All right, so let's get into our first question here. And it is technology's role in hospitality. To begin this, let's kick it off. Can you each share an example of how your organization is using technology to enhance both operational efficiency and guest satisfaction? Let's start with David.
Thank you, Steve. It's so nice to be here with everybody, and thank you for choosing me to be part of your panel. Again, I'm David. I'm the president and founder of Conscious Hospitality Unlimited. We are a hospitality consultancy and human development firm where we have a two-pronged approach to leading both individuals and team members in the hospitality industry through the eye of conscious hospitality. Which means just elevating the level of genuine care and awareness in the day-to-day of human beings and how that translates to the language of hospitality that we know and love. When it comes to technology, for me, what I've realized in my life and in my career is that there are things that I'm good at and there's things that I'm not good at, right? And I'm like many people that join the hospitality industry. What made me successful at the very beginning of my career was the way that I engaged with human beings and the amount of interaction, empathy, connection that I could build naturally with human beings to be able to get them to accomplish things together. And like I said, the hospitality business is doing things with people, through people, for people. And so it's all about the human connection. Where that led me to was to understand that I was spending so much time and energy and focus on creating reports, on going through Excel spreadsheets, on preparing budgets, on doing all these things that were actually taking me away from what I love to do and what I was good at naturally, right? And so thanks to technology, I've been able to bridge a gap that for me was very difficult and tedious and tough to bridge because I needed a group of team members that were really good at those things naturally, but I needed to be able to communicate with those people, right? And so thanks to all the great technology that has emerged over the past 20 years, I'd say since I started in my career, there's much more automation, there's much more interface, there's much more fluidity in terms of communication between, those people that are highly human and highly that connect highly to on the human side, and the people that are making it happen on the back of house. And so for me, the example is really on those type of activities, right, where I can delegate a job description to ChatGPT to pump it out for me in 30 seconds, where before I would have been sitting in my office, banging my head for, 2-3 days before procrastinating to the last minute to be able to provide that, right? Because it wasn't my natural tendency. And so I'm super thrilled that technology is advancing and that we're together creating better interfaces and better methods of use of technology so that we can go and focus on what we really love, which is to take care of human beings.
I love it. And we're going to talk more about that because you were general manager for 6 Senses and for 4 seasons. So I'm a little jealous of the people who have AI now. I wish I would have had it when I was an executive in the hotels. But why don't we come over to Katie? So Katie, give us your quick intro here and just talk about how you're using technology now in your company.
Yeah, so thank you. So I am the VP of Revenue and Commercial Strategy for Bunkhouse. For those not familiar with Bunkhouse, we are a small boutique hotel company. Our hotels range from 19 rooms all the way to 122. So when it comes to the integration of technology, it's really important that we still maintain that human connection and are very strategic in like what funds we have and like the staffing that we have. So from my side, we've seen a huge lift. Just one program that we've used is Alice to really help with guest communication, having, the ability to check in a guest before their arrival, asking what their preferences are, making sure that that's in the room for them. On the revenue side, I've used both Duetto and Ideas, which really helps, spit out those reports. It makes reporting a lot easier so that you can be more strategic, going forward for like what your pricing model will be. And we're really working right now on trying to see how we can just really elevate the guest experience by using AI and by using other tools that are predictive so that we can really anticipate what that guest needs are before they come through the door, make sure that we log it, and then also making sure that we can use it also to the benefit of the hotel to increase revenue, to increase some of that ancillary revenue during their stay, and to ultimately help both the guests and the employees through that.
No, I love it. And so, Sean, you are creating technology that does a lot of this. So we're not going to ask you what your technology is doing. I want to say, how are you using technology for your team to make them more efficient and be better for your clients?
Yeah, so wonderful to be here. Spot's such a great organization and show. When we look at technology, first of all, for our team is what we do, right? We know how to do this right. But I would say that overall, from an industry perspective, technology is great, but it almost has to be as if it's the hotel itself having an unlimited technology budget. This is what they would do if they could. All right, so you have to still have the look and feel of that luxury property all the way to select service property. It has to be from the hotel. Our integrations need to be hotel-like. The staff needs to easily be trained on these things as if it was their own technology. The guest experience needs to be as if we didn't exist, if it was a hotel that could do it all themselves. The look and the feel has to be there. It has to be a custom feeling, like they're grabbing that guest attention as they would expect from a select service all the way to a luxury side of it. It has to feel like it's their own. Obviously, higher hotel revenue is the goal across the board, but it has to be married with the guest experience side. We use that same concept internally to scale our back end of our systems, all of our departments in our company. Now we're over 50 employees. It has to be the same back end where people understand that the notes on certain things are the same, the reporting is the same. We always say for our company, one QR code, one checkout, one report, one itinerary. It's got to be the same. We have to believe it. We have to live it ourselves every day. It has to be the same from our project team to our onboarding team to our client success team to really understand the digital guest experience and how it impacts the staff training, and the revenue teams as well.
I love it. And so I've been walking through a lot of hotels recently, and I know that the three of us do this all the time, but I'm starting to see a lot of stress on some of the middle managers and executives' faces, especially now. Like right now is budget season, right? We're filming this, recording this now here in September. Everyone's getting their budgets ready. I see David smiling because you probably remember that very well. But how can we start using technology, kind of streamline this to where we're making the employees' lives better, giving them the tools to where they aren't as stressed and to really help them be better? I'll start with Katie on this one.
Yeah, so I think, as I mentioned, and particularly I'm right now in budget season, having revenue tools that can help anticipate what it's going to be, creating the templates for you, to make it just a lot easier. So instead of you having to create it, you're really just kind of reviewing the data that you have. Also as it comes to budget season, one of the things we're looking at, especially as like some markets are relatively soft, is how can we increase our other revenue or our ancillary revenue? What can we do to some of our experiences, such as wine tasting, kind of upsells, all of that, which also ties into the guests, but like really, how can we optimize kind of both the guest stay and revenue at the same time? So those are some of the things that we're looking at. But, from a pure budget standpoint, having sort of any kind of tool that allows you to automate the process really relieves a huge headache. And also for the staff, if everybody has the same template, that it's a little more automated, there's also a lot less mistakes. So, I've been in the industry for now over 20 years, and I remember my first job was manually putting everything together. And one time I did accidentally put the wrong number in, and then the whole thing's off. So,
Yeah.
being able to catch that, being able to use tools, even Microsoft's latest tool as well really helps with that too. And then also with the presentations, I mean, the whole process has touch points that can be streamlined and automated to really make it much less of a headache.
No, that's really good. And so, Sean, you're working with thousands of hotels in your company, right? What are you seeing some of the best hotels doing with this? How are they doing this well?
Yeah, I think that so much creativity we're seeing right now as certain regions are coming off season. There's like a gap in between their seasons right now. What do they do, right? So I think the biggest thing, and it's probably the most boring thing to talk about, but if you have the revenue and operations team feeling good, like if you do the right reporting, the integrations are set, the revenue centers are mapped correctly, like the Cabana has a 25% food and beverage component to it. It's perfectly mapped into the point of sale. Once all that infrastructure is taken care of, we're seeing amazing creativity right now across the board. We've seen a certain region where they're making football, the NFL packages in a cabana. So now instead of using a cabana just for the pool area, you come in off season. Now all of a sudden use something where it's an NFL package. Maybe it's instead of having sunglasses and sunscreens and different things for the for being outside by the pool area. Now maybe it's wings and beers and different kinds of craft opportunities. And maybe you have 15 people in a cabana because it's kind of like everyone's hanging out by the TV as opposed to people sitting in there enjoying the kids in the pool area. So we're seeing a lot of creativity. It's all based on the infrastructure being in place to support that. We noticed a few years ago, we created a lead time opportunity where if you had a few days notice, you could actually build an activity. So we're seeing a lot of properties are saying, if I could bring in that basketball pro ahead of time, can I actually schedule a pickup game 3 days out, knowing that the pro is going to show up, organize a team, and I can actually take a piece of that revenue. And the guests are super excited to participate on their journey, being part of it. So I guess the first part, again, infrastructure being there, make sure you could support that on the operation side. You don't want guests showing up, same day and all of a sudden expecting some type of custom package. And then you fail on the operation side, then what's the point? But if you could succeed on the operations side and the revenue guys are giving you a thumbs up, you can create amazing packages like the NFL football package, or different things happening, or like kind of like it looks like almost like a pop-up event happens, but the infrastructure there to support that pop-up event. I think that's a big deal. I think we'll see a lot more of that as the winter rolls in and properties need more revenue and getting more creative in how they do it.
Yeah, I like that you're saying the operational team has to make it easy for them. So, David, you've led a lot of operation teams.
Yeah.
And you've seen all different things work and not work.
Yeah.
What are you seeing that's working? What are you wishing maybe you had that you could use technology for right now? Because now with AI and tech that the hospitality companies like Real Time are putting out, what are you seeing that works well?
Yeah. So there was one piece that I was going to mention, I think going back to the best practice that should happen, it doesn't happen often enough, and we see it in other areas of a hotel operation, but technology doesn't necessarily get this level of attention or intention, is really understanding the basics of each system, proper training. How many times have we spent a ton of money implementing a system, going through the ROI process, really buying, the owners buy into the fact that we need the system. The installers get there, have a great kickoff meeting. We set up the system. And then 6 months later, the system's being used at 10%, 15% of the capacity. And then when you start digging in as to why, it's because nobody really knows how to use the system, right? And how to use it properly. And, you can think about it in F&B, for example, who ends up being the expert in your POS, right? The
Choosing the one
one
person.
that one person that has some sort of tech savvy approach. And so to me, if we're going to go and spend the amount of money that we're spending on technology, and we now understand that this technology talks to each other and it can minimize steps of service and it can minimize the amount of human interaction and automate, et cetera, then I think there needs to be a substantial amount of training involved, right? And so to me, the most successful IT operations, IT-driven operations where technology is used correctly, has not only a firefighter in the IT team that you can call when something goes down, but has a person on that IT team that is constantly educating people on how the system works. And the idea is that you proliferate that, right? So how amazing would it be if Katie could have a partner in front office, a partner in sales, a partner in F&B, a partner in all of these that have as much of an understanding of that system that Katie doesn't have to be the single manipulator of one of these revenue systems, right? And so if you think about how most revenue meetings happen, for example, everybody sits in a room and starts listening to Katie talk about what she's observing, what she's seeing, because she's spending all that time in the system. Same thing happens in F&B, same thing happens in rooms with all the system. How amazing would it be if you had a true team of experts that were not only manipulating the system properly, but that were also continuing that education and continuing to find better uses for the systems, right? So to me, we're already spending the money going out and buying these systems. They're talking and improving better and better, the way that they interface with each other, but there isn't enough time spent proactively to teach and educate the use of these systems. And we have young people in these operations that are smart, they're tech savvy, they're gurus in other pieces of technology. Why wouldn't you educate them early on how the actual system works, right? And not have to wait until you've put so much junk into the system that you need to clean it all up and start afresh, right? Which we've all done again many times.
Yeah, I've seen that tech creep. That tech creep starts happening, especially when you're running the big resorts. I remember running food and beverage. I had 19 programs I had to log into just to run recreation and food and beverage, which is crazy to say. And so, Sean, I want to talk about like optimizing technology here with you. Your team now and your company is saying you got one login with endless possibilities to be able to do these things. I wish I had tools like that. How is your team making this happen? What are they doing to like make it easier now with this?
I think the first thing is, and David's so on point. We spent a tremendous time before even building out the software for our first customer, realizing that we needed to create a flexible backend system where it's the same no matter which group you're part of. So we just spent almost 2 years building out a restaurant module, table management, all right, that competes with the best. But it can't just be a standalone. It's not good enough to be a standalone. It has to be the same as every other system that we created. If you want to build it on the broad look at inventory management, how do I manage a moment in time? But the back end should be the same. We're going through the exercise right now, building out Spa, a really deep dive into Spa software. But it has to be the same as the back end of restaurants, the back end of cabana management and kids club and yoga classes. You almost want, and we'll see if this could really happen in the industry, but you would like someone working at the spa, if needed, jump into the kids club, jump into the restaurant area to do basic stuff because the system is so perfect that it looks the same. It feels the same. They can help out. And I think what we're noticing in software, and I see it really happening a trend really everywhere in our industry, is scaling the back end down enough that it's simple and easy to use. That's the biggest key here. So when you have a new employee, they kind of get it because they've been in this industry before. They know what has to be done. Things are easy. You can drop and drag things across the board. Terms and conditions are already there. You don't have to create new ones. We're doing a lot of work now with brands on bringing in static information at the brand level. Where's it coming from? How did a direct pipe in there? No one's manually entering stuff anymore. And that's a key part of this. The revenue teams have to be able to set up yield management ahead of time with rules that really make sense. You can't have yield management exactly the same for every part of the house as you do rooms. So you really want to create systems that are, really one system, but the back end has to be so powerful where it's easy to use. And especially when staff comes in where they do now, train them quick. A lot of times we get a hotel up and running within 24 hours of training. It's very quick to do it because the system's back end, it just makes sense. This is the way you would do things. And I think that the real goal for us is can different departments work in different departments? Can that really happen? So when you have a few staff that kind of call out one day, that you have the power to actually manage the hotel appropriately with limited staff.
Yeah, and I want to come, Katie, I'm going to come back to you, but David, you mentioned this past conversation where you wanted teams to kind of work in different departments, and it was a little bit of a challenge. How do you see maybe this kind of technology helping do that?
Yeah, I again, the way that I've realized the operation works, right, is it has two main points of focus. One of them is the guest experience and the guest touch point and what the guest actually feels when they're experiencing it. And then there's the administrative work that actually needs to happen so that whatever they're asking you for ends up happening, right? It's all the administrative. And that's where I think we're getting better, but there's so much more we can do to separate those two tasks without the guest realizing it, right? Because if you think of a check-in process, right? How amazing is it that now I can, from the moment I'm here sitting down to the moment I'm arriving to my destination, not talk to a human being and be able to check in for my flight, get through the counter, check in at the hotel, use the key to get into my room, all of it, right? And so it can be done, but it's now integrating it into an experience where it doesn't feel choppy and where you're able to really focus the experience for the experience. And then the technology does the rest, right? The technology does all that administrative work and legwork that you used to depend on human beings for to be able to make it as seamless as possible, right? And then the human component comes in troubleshooting when there's a glitch or something doesn't go necessarily right. That's when a human being can come in and really help navigate that, right? But I think if you separate these two, then you have a clearer idea of like, this is what I really need my technology to do, and this is why I need it to be headache free, right? As much of the time as possible.
No, I love that. And so, Katie, coming back to you, you get to see all different kinds of data, right? So we talked a little bit about technology and how teams can use it, but you get to see all different kinds of data from your hotels. What's a way to kind of use maybe like technology like real time that has data and AI built in to really personalize experiences, right? Because we have all this technology, but how can we personalize it, like David's saying? How do you see that?
Yeah, so I think one of the things which also Sean touched upon was just having one back end, so right now, like, it's not the same throughout all the hotels and even some other hotels that I've worked at where if you pay for a meal, you can't charge it to your room. So like, how can we make sure that we like have a tech stack that really communicates with each other, that has the same back end, so that let's say you check in and like, I know your entire customer journey. I also know what that journey looked like at my other hotels. So I can anticipate whether you'd want something at another restaurant or like, really kind of give that high level of service, that people are looking for, but like in a seamless way so that, it also like doesn't feel too creepy, because I think that's the other thing. Sometimes people think you have to use it, in the right way, but how great would it be to have one point of entry for everything? Like right now you have a different CRM sometimes, then your CRS, then your PMS, then somebody says like, hey, I found out this new tool works. Let's add that in at this hotel. So they have something different, but it doesn't communicate over here. I mean, I look sometimes at the hospitality landscape and it's like,
yes,
like, and as a guest, sometimes it's frustrating where you're like, so I can't sign it to my room. And then, the poor employee is like, oh no, unfortunately, we're separate. They try to fumble their way through it. And you're just like, okay, here's my card, but I'm here at the hotel. They look at all as one, so they don't realize that there are maybe different departments. So I think that's a huge step kind of in the right direction for helping that out.
Yeah, I agree with you. And so, Sean, I'm going to come back to you on this. See, because I always like that you get to see so many different hotels around the globe because you get to talk to so many. Who are you seeing doing things using technology to personalize the best? Or is there anyone that stands out? Or you have to name a hotel, but maybe there's certain things that you're seeing where they're personalizing at a different level now because of technology?
Oh yeah, I know we see this every day. The idea, and it might not even be with actual guest names, but it's the idea of because everything that we do runs to the point of sale. Even if they collect on the credit card up front, you have to close that transaction. The revenue teams will tell you that it has to be recognized when the guest arrives, not when you book. So you have kind of two checks that are opening up. But we're seeing everything to the point of sale. We know in the restaurant module what guests are eating when they're ordering food. We're doing a lot of work now to understand the timing of seating. You know, when a guest arrives, when are they actually leaving? What different courses might have quicker times to leave the table? You get a lot of granular data. Some of the brands are asking us for actual and the hotels are as well, for all the data points. They don't want our CRM, they want their own CRM, and they want to add the ancillary revenue to their current revenue stack and build a real total report, but their way, with the data points that they have, with loyalty programs that they currently have. So you're able to see something where, yes, I know the guest ordered a $500 bottle of a certain red wine, and if I have some type of tasting, this guest might be perfect. That same might also work for maybe an expensive show or event, a cabana, things like that. But we're also seeing something where the restaurant reviews might have went down a little bit, but we just did a renovation and we noticed that certain reviews based on customers ordering certain types of foods had a certain reaction in the revenue in the review piece. So you see everything is related to each other, and the same would happen for spa as well as an activity, things like that. We could actually marry the review to what the guest actually ordered, or kind of what you think ordered, or maybe your peer group of hotels are doing something a certain way that's successful. And if you adopted that, what would the cost of doing that be? And does that fit into your model and your brand, of course? But is that going to be a success for you to kind of look at your own reviews and your own guest satisfaction surveys, things like that? So I think each data element is so important. But we also want to make sure that the review reflects on something that you're trying to do, as opposed to a vague kind of review. The more details we have about that guest, the better it is, not only to fix the issue, but also to see kind of what kind of guest is performing, how they're doing it. We've had ownership, several owners actually come to us and say, you know, we just did a renovation in a certain part of the property. Can you see the reviews that we've gotten for that renovation, or since that renovation, how to do it, or what kind of guests ordered what around the area of the renovation, and how did that affect us? So you know, it's getting exciting, you know, Steve, in terms of like, you know, what data parts make sense for different groups of people. The operation team, the revenue team, food and beverage team, they all have their different needs for data. But as you start setting data over in real time, we start seeing very quick action happen. We also see that what the hot button topics are of that day. What makes sense? What's the weather? How does the weather impact an event or something like that? So every data element that we have, third-party data elements, like I was saying about weather, things like that matter. The political climate could have an impact now that we didn't see before, but might change the dynamic of something that happened somewhere. So, and of course, where we see AI coming into this is going to be a big piece as well, because now you have your data elements, and now you have your strategy from the hotel level, management level, ownership level, and the flag level. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, you're exactly right on that. And especially with the power of having all those data points to be able to personalize down to that person
Yeah.
what they really like, I think is really cool. And so, David, your superpower was always this in hotels, is personalizing experiences for people, because you worked in these hotels that were ultra luxury hotels. So if you're watching this now, you know, go on LinkedIn and see where he worked, because he worked some of the best of the best. But you mentioned you've been doing this a long time now, so you didn't have all the tools that we have right now.
Yeah.
And how would you use some of this technology like AI to help personalize this, right? Because we want, it's all about the humans, and we could go from a plane to the hotel room and not
Yeah.
see anybody.
Yeah.
But how are you thinking you could personalize this?
Yeah, so I think you know, if you go back a little bit to the process that is created in a hotel operation to personalize situations for guests, right? So it takes a lot of time digging through information, right? Going through the opera reports, going through previous stays, going through their checks, going through conversation that you had with them pre-arrival, arrival. So there's all these data points that now Sean mentions. You could easily turn that a 10-day or a 4-day process for a weekly meeting, right? They're spending 4 days preparing for this meeting that you have once a week to go through all of your arrivals for the week and go one by one and look at all the details and what you've missed from the reservations process that you need to get at check-in. It's really digging through data points and information, right? So if you could easily find a way to plop a report open that says arrival this day, 3 main points, right? Like what are the 3 suggestions that can be made already? Then you're winning the game, right? That's what the team needs. They need, okay, these are the 3 touch points where we can hit them. This is where it's going to make the most impact. That's great, right? That's a proactive approach. When you get to a pre-shift at a restaurant, right? You're physically going through whatever reservations you have for the day, and you're talking about, okay, Mr. Turk is coming with 4 people. He's coming for his anniversary. What's the touch point that we're going to, right? So how great would it be if there was a proactive approach to these things, where the moment that person checks in and is checking in for their lunch or their dinner, there's a little window that pops up and says suggestions for personalization, right? And you're automatically on the moment, so that you don't have to remember, oh, Mr. Turk is arriving at 8 p.m. and, they may be running a little bit late. No, it's the moment they check in, boop, it pops up. And then the hostess can use that and be like, hey, here's Mr. Turk. This is the bottle of wine we're going to send, right? So you can use this expert advice of these people that before you were depending on the manager that was a little awake, that could put 2 and 2 together, that had done it before. Now you've got the technology to be able to siphon through all the data points and give you the proactive on the spot suggestion, right? And an agent could say, this is a guest that has upgraded their stay 5 times in the past. Sell them the upsell, because you know that you're going to get it, right? So that is something for the front desk agent at the moment of check-in. That's a little bubble that could give them what they need in order to personalize. That's where I can see technology going forward in a really great way.
All right, Sean, you got to start building this for David over here. So I like that, because I see that too as part of my daily routine, is using AI for a lot of things, especially when you have all this information, and I use it for reviews for all different kind of companies to see and pinpoint things. But I agree that it comes down to those line level staff using it all the time, and it helps make more money. So talking about making more money, like we just talked about, we're in budget season. So Katie, I'm coming back to you here. We're in budget season. We just had record years for hotels, but we can't ever make a budget where it says we're going backwards. All right, we can't say, oh, sorry, this year's going to be a little slower. But ancillary revenue is usually the things that help us get that new level of revenue. So what are some things that you're doing now using technology? And we'll throw one in. What is something you wish would be out there that you could use to help you?
Yeah, so I think right now we do use tools sort of like David was talking about, that do like say like, hey, this guest has upgraded before, like putting prompts in, like try to upsell them again, really looking at the food and beverage spend, trying to do what we can on that side for the guests, so making it really looking at like how much do they spend, looking at perking, so like we're really evaluating what are we pricing things at right now, and making it so that, again, the customer doesn't feel like they're getting taken advantage of, because like we're either anticipating it or we're like offering something extra to make their stay that much more. A lot of it on the bunkhouse side has to do with experiences. So we really do pride ourselves in having unique experiences at each one of our locations. We have a property in Todos Santos where we do mezcal tasting. We do a picnic basket for you. We have, cabanas for you that you can purchase. So really looking at how we can maximize on everything that we offer. So that's really the next part of kind of pushing that budget along. And obviously you can't show numbers that are below the year before. So that is one way, it's interesting because like with the resort fee, that seems to be in limbo now as well for like whether, we want to wrap it back in the rate or show it. So we're really getting creative, but getting creative on the side that like helps the guest out, but also helps the employee out. It's really great when you can come in and kind of have all your needs anticipated, have like the mini bar stocked with the items you want. And it's great for us because then you're purchasing those items too. So like that's definitely some of the things that we're looking at.
And what do you wish you would have so it would make it easier for you?
Yeah, so I wish I had a system kind of like David was talking about and Sean, where there's like one back end that has all that user information from the guest perspective, and it's something that also allows us to prompt it, so that again it's just like a little less legwork and makes it a lot easier. Especially, you know, I know part of this conversation is talking about employees, and there is like a pretty high turnover in our industry. You know, a lot of people are around for like a year or so. So how can we work on lowering the turnover, but also making sure that when people are onboarded, you know, they're not overwhelmed, and that they have these like easy systems to use that also help put money in their pocket. You know, oftentimes like there's an upsell incentive program. So like the employee gets a kickback, you know, or there's a benefit if they can upsell more guests. So, you know, I just think having one, you know, I think for me, the biggest headache is really just having one system of communication versus having to go to several different reports that say like, this guest stayed at this hotel, now they're at this hotel, they've eaten at this restaurant, that restaurant, they're one of our VIP guests, but why are they a VIP guest? You know, again, some of our hotels are much smaller, so we don't have a ton of staff, but we do have some individuals who are Googling guests before they arrive, so that we know kind of who's coming through the door. So having that automated and having all those points, you know, to help lead the journey would be amazing.
Sounds good to me, you know. And David,
Yeah.
you have been you've been in the rooms with these owners too. You've had these tough meetings.
Yeah.
What are some things that you can do to help generate more money by using technology, right? Because I look at, yes, we have our room. There's only so much we can raise resort fee every year, right? Because I've been there, well, I'll just raise resort fee $1. How can you use your property and the square footage there to be creative, to create ancillary revenue using technology?
Yeah, but I think there's two elements when you're speaking to the owners, right? At the end of the day, majority of the owners, they're looking for a return, right? And so it's either additional revenue or it's improved efficiency, right? And I think, you know, this is a side of the business that we struggle talking about because we are a human business after all, but we do need to be more cunning and smarter about how we're organizing our teams and how we're actually putting together the org chart of the future in hospitality, because it's still a very, very outdated model, right? We're still basing our org charts on factories and you know, the industrial revolution, you know, whereas world has changed, right? And so every time I go in and scrutinize a P&L or scrutinize a staffing guide, you know, I say, okay, so you've had this position that's been vacant for a year and a half. That means that you've filled the responsibilities of that position in some way or another with the team that you have for a year and a half, right? So why do you still need that position open if it's been, you know, open for a year and a half, right? And if you look at there are so many roles that are highly technical that technology should be doing the majority of the legwork. And I'm not saying that it's a matter of getting rid of those people. It's a matter of reshuffling responsibilities so that those people can do the best with what they have and with the natural talents they have. But I do think that we need to get much more efficient in terms of how we're layering our teams. And by force of that, technology will take a greater stage, because right now we have a lot of functions that they're not using the technology, they're doing it manually just so that they can save their jobs, right? And that's not the approach that we should be taking. When it comes to revenue and additional revenue and how to program, I think what Sean was mentioning earlier is the key, right? Is really having a system where you can analyze your data points and have meetings where the people that are involved in the day-to-day operation can give you suggestions. A lot of the time what happens is you have mediocre data and 3 or 4 decision makers that are so far removed from the daily operation that their ideas aren't necessarily relevant, or they're based on something they saw over the weekend at another restaurant or bar. Whereas being able to come up to an owner and saying, listen, here's a major opportunity. You can see that this is the time of the day where we don't have movement in X space. This is what we need to do to activate it. This is the competition. This is what's out there. I think having the data point that technology can provide and the analysis that it can also provide us, especially through AI, will definitely help us in the future to get better revenue opportunities.
I like that. So Sean, he mentioned something here about the challenge of not really using the tools. You onboard hundreds and hundreds of hotels a year. I'm not saying blame anybody here, but how could they better be prepared to take on new technology like yours that has so many great tools?
Yeah, I think it really comes down to the heart of the property. What are their goals? What's their mission? And obviously, it could just be lack of staff at that moment. But look, it's our job. It's our job to make sure that our client success teams are very engaged. We really get involved. It's a true partnership. We want to make sure that not only are we there for support, and we do around the clock telephone support, which is pretty crazy out there. But we keep hearing, if I had a phone number to call, if only I had someone I could reach out to, they actually respond. We have some online chats now between some very high volume products of ours, because you need instant responses. You can't really wait for that. But really the idea of engagement is so critical, because we see properties that are very similar across our spectrum of properties. And if only they did this, if only they added this one piece. Some of the vendors would say to us, and it might be a third party vendor that says, hey, we offer parking, and we get 35% of the revenue directly from the hotel website. Give us more of your hotels. And I'm like, it doesn't really work like that. But the idea is there, where properties can use their own websites to get more revenue in because of just eyeballs on their site, or different concepts that they could be doing based on some hot idea that might be in town. So there should be some more sharing of ideas. A lot of the industry events like ILHA really kind of promote that coordination, not so much from a competitive standpoint, but just being aware that you can offer this, and it's okay. And there is a success criteria for offering something. It's not that big of a risk to offer something that could be very beneficial to the hotel, if you had the support to back it up. So again, you always need the revenue teams and operations teams to support you with all your ideas. But I think it's just really important to say is how do I really explore what guests really want? And the more we speak to guests, it's always about, if you give me the service I want, I will buy it. I want to be on a vacation. I don't want to, think about things. I want to plan everything ahead of time. I don't want to miss out on something either. So what can you give me as a guest? And we see a lot of times we go to guests, we go to the hotels, and we see a guest at the front desk saying, hey, is there a tour that I could take for this? Is there something I could do for this? Or I see bicycles outside. Can I rent one? It's just getting really close to the guests before they arrive, creating a really good plan for the guest, a good digital, journey for this. And how can we really get, and again, it's the revenue comes, I think the revenue comes as a reaction to having a great guest experience. So I think you really have to engage the guests early and often. Yield management's great, but only if it's really early on in the process. When the guest arrives, you don't want to do any kind of yielding when the guests are there, in certain situations. But I really think the opportunities are there. It's wide open right now. Vendors and hotels are kind of getting on the same page and says, if we all kind of team up here, we could offer an amazing experience. The hotel could obviously get more revenue from this, and the staff could do better scaling, but the guest experience could really kind of pay off in a big way for the future.
I love that. I love that quote. Right? If your guest experience is right, the revenue will come. I think that's a great quote that you shared here today. Now, look, we've got thousands of people watching us here on the ILHA webinar, and we've spent already a good amount of time talking about all different kinds of technology. But I want you to share kind of like your final thoughts here on how to empower the teams to be the best they can be. So what is your one key takeaway, piece of advice you would give to hotel leaders about leveraging technology to really help their teams provide that great guest experience, but also drive that revenue? So why don't you start with David?
Sure. I think Sean just mentioned, he said two words that for me are critical to really be able to leverage technology for the future, and that's digital journey, right? We spend a lot of time and energy mapping out what the guest journey is, what the guest touch points are. If you have a good HR team, then you do the same thing for the internal guest, right? For the employee, right? What is the touch point at every step in the road from beginning to end? I think coming in with intention and with focus on what you want that digital journey to look like hits all the points we've been talking about now, right? It hits making sure that the right players are in the right roles. It makes sure that you have sufficient education and training opportunities. It makes sure that you have the right people following up proactively and reactively. It makes sure that there's buy-in from senior leaders all the way down to the line level teams, that they're using it, leading it by example. So I think just really having an intentional discussion as an executive team on how you want to integrate and leverage technology and mapping that out into a touch point by touch point journey is the way to go. And it establishes the baseline for everything you're going to create for your teams. But it has to have that level of attention and importance in your organization, no doubt.
True. And Katie, you're using, again, all different kinds of technology. What's your advice for the people out there listening to help their team and their guests using the technology?
Yeah, I think it's sort of what everybody has been saying. It's understanding the technology, using it to your benefit. We're all in the business of sort of serving others. So technology really helps us give the best service possible for the guests and then also our employees, if implemented and used correctly. I think it's important that, there is, more training that happens with a lot of these systems so that people really understand the power behind every one of them. So I think, anybody looking at their current STEC deck, I would take a look and see, like, what are we using? What are we not using? It's harder to say, like, oh, let's add this technology, but based on what we have, how can we look at what we have and how can we use it better?
That's great. And Sean, look, you're creating the tools that we're all using here. So I'm going to flip it just a little bit. How can we use the tools that you're creating to really help our team, our guests, and make sure that we're making money on property?
Yeah, I think see the last part about what you just said is key. It's all about higher revenue for the hotel. That's what this comes down to. When we first started, it wasn't about creating the wonderful ancillary item or activity. It was about guests actually showing up at that activity, and I think that's a key part of it. You start seeing restaurants collecting a deposit now for certain high peak times. So what we did, again, integrations are so key here. You want to kind of leverage off, with our, RTR1, this one platform. We start seeing that what restaurants are doing in certain areas, maybe the cabana staff should be doing, maybe the spa staff should be doing. But integrations and tech are so key here. The guests have to show up. So just like you have a cancellation policy for a hotel room, it should apply across the board. We had several properties come to us and say, you collect the token of the credit card. The secure mechanisms were approved on all the major gateways of credit cards, but we collect the token. So now if you don't show up for dinner, we can actually have the hotel charge that credit card, which is a huge opportunity that's just starting to take effect. It's just starting. It's the very beginning process. A Saturday night, 7 o'clock dinner reservation. The guest does not show up, party of 6. What do? You hope somebody walks in, or you could actually use their credit card token and your cancellation policy, the same with the hotel room. Now we had a situation where hotels are saying, what if somebody actually damages the cabana that they're in? They stay in the cabana, they damaged it. What do? Well, we have their token for their credit card. So you see opportunities of saying, I have a cancellation policy, I have a damage waiver. The same things we did for hotel rooms. All of a sudden now we're saying if you smoke in the room, you have a fine. The same concepts are now in place because technology allows us to do it. So we want to get the guest experience super high. Creative teams, recreation teams, wonderful experience. The NFL Cabana package is something that you're going to see really across the globe right now, especially when soccer comes out and different sports come out. That's exciting. But now that we have technology through integrations, ask that technology vendor, how do I have a cancellation policy? I see that you integrate into my credit cards, integrate into my point of sale, integrate into my property management system. I have all these integrations. I know exactly who my guest is. My reporting is perfect. I can track the guests on everything. I need to make sure the guests show up at the event. And I think that's the biggest thing we should be saying is you have a great event. You have the perfect fire pit outside. Make the guests show up by having an enforceable policy that keeps the revenue into the hotel.
I love it. That's great advice. And I got to say, all the advice here is jam-packed in this 45 minutes we just had. I'm going to go back and re-listen to this because there's so many great tips that I can share. And I really love that one login of the endless possibilities, Sean, that you're creating, because all of us in operations wish we had that. And so I love that you're creating that now. But I'd like to thank you all for joining the International Luxury Hotel Association's webinar series. If you found the webinar to be of value, please do share this recording. Recordings of past webinars can be found on the ILHA's website, theilha.com, under events. Until next time, have a great day.